color on NBC. The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC. The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
Welcome to the Rotary Razz of August 16th, 2022. It was a great meeting, and the program for this evening, which we'll get to first, was introduced by Jenna Anderson, and she introduced this guy named Rob, and she knows him fairly well, even though they tend to celebrate their anniversaries far, far apart. Anyway, Rob Anderson is up, and he's going to be talking about the ever-changing landscape of local television, and I found that to be fascinating. So here's Rob.
Because television used to be really exciting, and I used to be really proud to go talk to places. And the interest just isn't really there anymore. I'm sure you've noticed, streaming services are sort of taking over. YouTube, there's all sorts of different ways people are consuming content. But the interesting fact that I learned, we were in Vegas a few weeks ago, is that 90% of the content that's being created right now by people, in the content creation world, is going to streaming services. 90%. So that leaves us broadcasters at ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, the big ones, going, yikes, what does that mean for the future of television, right? But flip that number, because 90% of the content consumed is on those four networks. So all this content is being created. You hear about Squid Games. Oh, more people are watching Squid Games across the world than anything else. BS. Listen to that. Fake news, as it were. Because a lot of that content is actually, at least in our country, is done all through local broadcasting. And so local broadcasters, I think, people just sort of have gotten used to taking them for granted almost. You expect to always be there. Take, for instance, cable services. Cable services are dying on the vine right now because you can go get your content, on Netflix, Hulu, and all those kinds of places. And so Fort Wayne is a little slower, or this area is a little slower to adopt technology like that. But we're still seeing a lot of impact in the streaming services. However, believe it or not, Fort Wayne in this general area, 25% is over the air, meaning someone's putting an antenna on their TV or on their house. Does anybody watch TV just on an antenna? Maybe? No, probably not. Which just surprises me, 25%, which is kind of crazy. And then you're seeing almost a 60% drop in cable services, and all going to streaming. So who has a streaming service of some sort in here? Yeah, exactly. Almost everybody. Is that you?
I can't answer that question.
But a lot of people,
What's that?
a lot of people have both, right?
Yeah, right. And you know how expensive cable is. It's nuts. So now you're kind of combining your own cable service. You're going out there and getting a la carte, History Channel, and you're going to get a la carte. You can even get a la carte networks. That's what we do actually at home. We stream everything from our house, and as the internet gets stronger, more and more of that's going to happen. So, it started out as kind of like a downer number, all that content being created, it's not coming to the big networks anymore. But in reality, it's really the flip. Companies buying up a lot of local stations. So over the last probably 10 years, you've seen a 2 or 3 handful of big companies buying up mass majorities of local television stations. So if you've kept up with Fort Wayne at all, you'll know that the ABC and NBC in town have been traded a couple of times. That's where I work. I work for ABC and NBC. I'm the marketing guy there. So that's a challenge for me.
So that
constantly
one
new
company
issues.
owns them, right?
Correct.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Right, and so our company just came from, it was a small family-owned company out of Quincy, Illinois, and they were called Quincy. And they bought the stations originally from Granite Broadcasting, which is kind of the original 21 Alive, if you remember. So Granite Broadcasting went out of business, they bankrupt, and they sold off to an investment company, and investment companies do what they do, which is make money. And so they just kept stripping and stripping from the station, and we were really in a bad spot. We needed a lot of help and infrastructure and improvements. And so when Quincy came in, big rich family-owned company were like dump a bunch of money into us, and they gave us like $6 million to expand our 2 studios and separate those 2 news departments. And then now we just got bought out roughly in January by another large company, nowhere near as big as Quincy. Quincy owned like 23 stations, primarily just in the Midwest. I now work for Gray Television, which owns 126 stations across the country, including Alaska and Hawaii. So like you can almost go anywhere within the company, and they do a lot of stuff. You know, they're very diversified. They're opening a 128-acre campus for studio films in Atlanta. They own several film production companies. They own their own live sporting events. Have you ever heard of Raycom Sports? Yeah, so Raycom is owned by Gray Television. So they've got a really large footprint. They're still the 3rd largest. There's still 2 more above us that are even bigger. But that impact is like, how you measure that is how much of the slice of the pie you get, right? And so the FCC steps in and says, well, you can't have more than 30% of the total media voice in the country. So right now our company's right at that level. So they're not going to really be able to grow anymore when it comes to local television. But you might see that change in the FCC rulings, because those companies, they want to grow and they want to get bigger, but then they can't. They're capped by the government. So it's kind of those Fox station, as probably most of you know it as. Everyone that's ever owned that's never put a dime into it, and they sell stuff dirt cheap, and it's kind of sad. So the hope that Fox would stay in business may not be good unless they figure out a way to make revenue. Anyhow, the most important thing is I like to offer it up and everyone to ask questions, because everyone wants to know, how much does a news anchor make, or is so and so really a nice person?
So, in these markets in the Fort Wayne area, you get a lot of young, fresh
Yes.
talent. Now,
Right.
when they leave, are they going to other stations in the company, or are they?
Yeah, so when we were Quincy, not so much, because they only had a small area to choose from. But yeah, now that we're Gray, and they can move laterally within the company even if they have a contract. So we try to we usually do a minimum of a 2-year contract, but like you said, it's all young talent coming in, and that's really hard right now to hire people, because we can't go out and find a 35 or 38-year-old man or woman to do this job. They won't work for the money, So these young kids coming out of college as a reporter, you could make, honest to God, you could go make more at Panda Express. They make about $15 to $16 an hour.
And they're shooting their own stuff, right?
And they shoot their own stuff, edit their own stuff. Wow. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So that's part of the industry problem we're having, is that the technology, and everyone thinks the streaming content is out there and that the local television is dying. It's not true. But that younger group that's coming up, they didn't all watch like we did. The primary networks. They weren't watching Friends, and they weren't having those conversations like that with their friends. It's a totally different dynamic now on television. And so because everything's so fragmented and everyone is not sharing, the same story. Does that make sense? It's like when the Super Bowl happens, what do? You go to work and talk about the Super Bowl, right? Talk about the commercials and all that. Very few things like that in life anymore, People aren't getting together and watching one singular content item. That answer your question?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
One company owns both stations. Do you have to pay attention, or are they completely autonomous?
Oh no, they're, and it's really interesting, because those 2 stations have kind of become, they combined at one time. So let me take you back 10 years, no, more than 10 years.
More than 10 years.
15? Does everybody remember when NBC and ABC joined together? They fired everybody from ABC. Okay, that was a nightmare. So what they did then was combine and simulcast 21's news on NBC.
Yeah.
And do you know why? NBC wasn't making any money. Nobody was watching. Okay, that's the problem. It all comes down to just, it's a for-profit business.
And
you
that
know?
was Indiana's News Center, though,
Yeah,
right?
right. We combined Indiana's News
Yes.
Center. So when Quincy bought us, we actually completely separated, thinking that we had done some research and the community wanted to see two distinct separate voices, which I personally agree with. So they literally split the building down the middle, and NBC's on one side, ABC was on the other. They competed against each other, and it was, in the same building, so it was kind of weird. And top secret here for this room only, we're going to combine again, and it's the same reason as before. And nobody's watching NBC, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you, Rob, for that interesting conversation. I had no idea that you did that kind of work, and I truly love the history of television. And I was, I guess, lucky to grow up during the heyday of it, I guess. And I've seen it go through all kinds of incantations, and so very interesting. Thank you very much. We had 3 guests this evening. One, Diane McCreary, who has appeared for the 3rd time, and she's filled out papers, become a member of the club, and so we're looking forward to doing that. Second would be John Morey, who I invited on behalf of Al Huth. I think gave me the heads up about him as being a potential member, so hopefully John had a good time. And then we had our staple East Noble visitor in the form of Ryan Norden, who's a senior this year and heavily involved with MIAC and East Noble Interact Club, and he's a golfer, and so it's always good to have him around. And now let's get on to the regular meeting. We had last week, Al Moore asked me if I could look into replacing our Rotary songbooks. But I ran into some roadblocks because I went on to Amazon and Rotary International, and nobody's selling books that I can find. So if somebody out there knows of a place, then give me a heads up. I see online that there are PDF files for sale, but they kind of pale in comparison to what we have already. Al Moore also brought in a card for us to sign to give to Tom Burke, and I'll check him out later on this week in the hospital or at his recovery domicile to see how he's doing, and so thanks for Al for doing that. It looks like our COPS Cycling for Survivors payment has been made. It also looks like our Crossroads United Way payment has been paid, and I am waiting on information from the prosthesis people to find out what forms we need to fill out to get them the money that we promised them. And then we had a couple of club votes. After I got my head together with some prodding from fellow Rotarians, I realized that yes, we did indeed promise $5,000 a year for 5 years to the YMCA endowment. And so because I received no negative commentary via email or otherwise this past week, I decided to hold a voice vote, and it sounded unanimous. And so we're going to be good on that, and we'll hopefully get the gears going here to pay off that promise. And then same thing with Terry Gaff, the $1,000 for 5 years for trail maintenance endowment was passed with a resounding positive voice vote. We also have made a list of the programs that are to be held coming up shortly. Next week's meeting will be held at the sports complex in Kendallville, and it's going to be the family picnic. And as of yesterday, that's Monday the 14th, we had, the 15th, we had a head count of 20, and it doesn't look like there's going to be many kids there, so we hope that more will sign up. And we do need a deadline of sign up by tomorrow, which is August 17, Wednesday of this week. We have some breaking news via text from Jenna Anderson. She says the current count for the picnic next week is up to 35. I've been looking to change the scheduled highway cleanup / trail cleanup on August 30th, and that is going to be changed. We will be at the American Legion on August 30th, and I will send out some information about that meeting, what's going to be going on at some time next week after the picnic. Dave Hockley made an announcement about tickets he's selling to this production called Smooth Edge 2, which will be held at the Community Learning Center on August 27 at 7 p.m. The cost is $25 a ticket. The very good news is that all of the profits will be going to the Common Grace. And as a little aside to that, David Hockley has a program on September 13th in which he invited Angie Kidd of Common Grace to talk about that program. So good job, David. It was good to see Dave Hunter back in the fold of Kendallville Rotary, and he was in pretty good voice, and he led us in a rendition of not Roll Rotary, but R-O-T-A-R-Y, and here's a little snippet of that.
R-O-T-A-R-Y is known on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, we promise those who serve the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
There were no birthdays, so we got right into the raffle and card drawing led by Terry Gaff. Casey ended up winning $3. I'm not really sure to this point whether or not she deserved it, because she kept on holding the card at arm's length and bringing it closer, trying to get it in focus, and so who knows. Anyway, congratulations. Harry won $7 in that, and the card, the King of Clubs, was not chosen, and so the pot for that went up, I don't know how much, from the $234, and so we're hoping that maybe I win this in the weeks to come. Larry Doyle was our Sergeant-at-Arms, and he fined Harry Milton $1 for his absences as of late. Terry Householder for kind of, the way he saw it was that Terry was ripping on Dave Hunter for the song that he chose, and it was, I think, maybe a whole other thing, but that's okay. We got $1 anyway. RJ for forgetting that his coworker was a Sarge. And Terry Gaff and I think Jenna Anderson were fined because they didn't really know all that much about the committee that they were on concerning the trails. And then there was one that I'll just show you here via video, and it was about Elmore.
And Elmore. Obviously,
Trying to help, and I got my mouth off.
what song did Dave say we were singing, and what song did you start singing?
Yeah.
Well, and then, everybody else at this table is paid a fine now.
No, is that true?
I don't know, is that true?
Oh, well, he's still recovering. We're not
Oh,
gonna make it.
okay.
Everyone else has. So I don't want you to feel left out. Throw $1 in.
My favorite fine of the evening came when Larry fined Fred $1 initially, but Fred, you know how he is? He can keep on just yakking and talking and backsassing, and he don't backsass the boss. And I couldn't help the whole time thinking about, it reminds me of this movie. And in this movie, Fred plays the role of Cool Hand Luke, and Larry plays the role of the captain.
What we've got here is failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach.
And then we had some brag bucks, and I have at least, I think I have 3 of them on video, so take a look to see what happened.
Step toward our trail to a villa. So we bought a hunk of land that is going to connect us from south of State Road 3 to a villa. We have to go north now too, but at any rate, that was an amazing step forward. And the other thing is that my daughter got a job today as the Student Services Associate at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in their Special Education Communication Disorders Department. So she's gainfully employed again, which I'm very proud of.
One, because the Albion Town Council gave us permission to start the process to build a child care center in Albion. And 2, because I started the process today to work with a church in Kendallville to start a registered ministry.
Well,
Yeah, you're close. I just want to announce that Oak Farm officially has its first high school soccer team. Wow.
We had a special presentation this evening of a Paul Harris Fellow, and it was emceed by our own Tom Jansen, so let's take a look.
Chairman of our foundation committee, we have a special presentation to make this evening. So, a little history, and you've heard a lot of this before, but there's a few other things. It's Paul Harris Fellow presentation. Paul Harris, he was a lawyer, was one of the founding members of the Chicago club that became Rotary. Their first meeting was February 23rd of 1905. The idea to bring business associates together to exchange ideas and develop relationships. Harris was the third president of the club. He worked to expand into other communities, and by 1910, several other cities had joined into the Rotary. Grew $1,038 per person in our club to the Rotary Foundation last year. So you guys are #1 in the district. And gals. They're saying it correctly. So today we would like to recognize one of our own members for the work that's been done not only in our club but throughout our community. When the pandemic hit, she saw to it that we could all join together over the web. She makes it possible for us to enjoy the meeting. If somebody can't be here, she makes it possible for them to join the meeting on the web for us. She's helped in many other ways in our community. We just got a $2 million grant for downtown Kendallville. This person put the video together to make that happen. It was fantastic. Today she works with Thrive by 5 through the Early Childhood Education Coalition to improve education for our children. Jenna, would you come forward? So this is how it happened. So one of the members said something to me one day, and this is what, we like to find individuals in our club that really do some spectacular things. So this is a quote I'm going to make. Jenna is an interesting mix of positive conundrums. Pay attention.
Yeah, right.
She is both logical and creative. While she single-handedly fixed the components of a job of treasurer, she also is a go-to person for problem solving or thinking of a new approach to a club activity. That doesn't include building the house. Jenna is relaxed but determined. At a glance, she is seemingly calm, but she is fiercely gritty when there's a job to do. Lastly, she is kind but brutally honest. While easily approachable, Jenna will not hesitate to offer her opinion when it comes to finding the best way to serve the community. I've heard many Rotarians say this is what the club needs more of, members like Jenna Anderson. Throughout her career, she has done her best to improve our community and our club, and for that, we would like to present her with the Rotary Paul Harris Fellow. Congratulations, and thank you for everything.
You want a good picture, Mike?
Well, Jenna is indeed a winner, and congratulations on the Paul Harris Fellow. And now it's time to wrap this up because we're getting on 25 minutes, and I don't know that people's attention spans can last more than that. And so, RJ, please take it over.
Was a James Michener piece about the decline of civilization due to not studying history, but I had such a strange day today. I have to talk about it. I was in Fryman Square, and I found a hat full of money. And then after that, I got chased by a guy with a guitar. And with that, will you all please rise and join with me in the 4-way test.
Will build goodwill, better friendships, will be beneficial to all concerned.